Hi everyone, it's Becky here. Welcome to another new video on my YouTube channel. It's my second day in Nanaimo. It's early in the morning. I am going to the downtown area to find a famous cafe to have breakfast. Here it is. I love the beautiful pink color of the exterior, the font, the windows, and best of all, the dappling shadows on the walls. Here I am going in to see what's inside. Wow, it's much more spacious than I imagined. Lots of vintage and perhaps antique stuff. Lots of pictures on the nostalgic green walls and warm sunshine streaming in, making it really cozy to sit in there. So I'm going to save the interior sketch for next time. Now I'm going to sketch my breakfast wrap and then the exterior with the pink wall and the dappling shadows above. So just beginning with the rectangular prism shape of the two halves of the breakfast wrap, and I just drew these three important lines inside the outline to define the three-dimensionality of the rectangular prism shape, and then fill the opening area with the ingredients inside the wrap, like the cheese, the eggs, the chicken, and the veggies in various organic shapes. And then a loose horizontal line to define the 3D shape of this piece. And now I'm drawing the little bits of salad here on the side using loose and relaxing lines as I observe, just following the flow of my seeing. And then the outline of the little dish underneath, these outlines, the thickness of the dish, and drawing multiple ellipses underneath these outlines of the food to give a sense of layers of food and the dish, and an accentuation on the bottom outline for shadows of the dish. Okay, so that's very much it for the drawing. Now I'm gonna quickly paint watercolors before the wrap gets cold. Just putting on a little bit of diluted yellow ochre for the tortilla wrap original color, and grabbing a little bit diluted yellow orange for the cheesy covering for the top part of these two wrap pieces. A little bit burnt sienna mix in for a crispy look. Grabbing a little bit of leftover gray, as you can see from this side of my palette, to shade the wrap a little bit to give it a more natural look. And then grabbing some leftover greens and yellows to paint the eggs and the greens inside the wrap. This is how I film my sketching videos. I'm using a gooseneck tripod attached to the edge of a table and just sketch. And then grabbing a little bit of leftover lime green, mix it with a little bit yellow ochre and then royal purple for the onions. Yeah, just playing with all those leftover greens to shade the colors of the leaves of the arugula, and some more intense orange brown for a more crispy look of the tortilla wraps. And just grabbing some leftover gray here that I mixed with cobalt blue, royal purple, and a little bit of green to shade the white plate. Because white objects in the world, they are very rarely just the white of the paper, except the white highlight spots or the white streaks. As you can see, I am leaving some white streaks untouched for the highlights of the ceramic dish. And then mixing some more of my own purplish gray to paint the shadow of the little dish. And also underneath the wraps. That's it. Now I'm gonna take a quick break to finish my coffee and my breakfast wrap, and then I'm gonna sketch this view in front of me. So when you're doing urban sketching, when you're dealing with a pretty tricky perspective, don't be afraid to start with a pencil with a rough layout so you know the size and placement. So I was a little bit unsure about the sizes of these two windows, so I just used pencil to quickly give them a rough placement. According to the rule of 1 point perspective, things moving away from us, they're getting smaller. The second window here on the right is a smaller one compared to the one on the left because of perspective shrinking in size. And then quick horizontal lines to know where I should be drawing the railings of the window. and I don't need to be way too detailed with the pencil work. Now I'm ready to dig in to draw the details, starting from the first window here on the left, drawing the general contour outline of the dome shape, and also layers of the frames. This horizontal line is going slightly down towards the right, and then these two vertical lines is pretty easy to know where they are. The arches here in the middle, kind of like a tiny little rainbow, a bit of accentuation, and more small arches. And then these lines inside, yeah, it's pretty easy to fill in the small details. And then shade in this area with solid black ink. Bit of accentuation for the large arch over there. And bit more accentuation right there. According to my observation, some areas of the outline, the shadow is darker. That's why that outline is thicker looking. And then some more of these bars spreading out on this large arch shape. And then these tiny little window panels. So here I'm really looking and seeing the units of these tiny panels inside each fan shape, and then just fill those in. So I see 4, yeah, inside each of these 4 fan shapes. And then now moving on to the next part of this large window. Before adding some details for the window frames, I want to draw these cube-shaped flower pots on the windowsill. So just drawing these square front sides, and then the top with these organic squiggles of flower shapes and leaf shapes. So I want to get these flower pots and flowers done because it's an overlapping in front of the window railings. So just having fun drawing these happy flowers growing on the windowsill. So as I always mentioned in my previous YouTube videos, it's always a better idea to draw the objects in front of other things to avoid as many overlapping lines as possible. Yeah, so that's the flowers, and now I'm ready to draw the railing details behind, more window panels in big and small rectangles, again following what I see, then eyeballing the sizes of these window panels. They're not too many, so yeah, it's not difficult. And then the metallic bars behind the glass. And then inside these window panels, actually behind, I see lamps shining in there. That gives a really cozy feel for us to see the inside, not just the surface of these windows. And quickly giving these flower pots a platform, the shape of the windowsill to stand on. Final accentuations for this window. Now it's time to move on to this. This window is the same size as the one on the left. It is only looking smaller because it's a little bit far away from us, the viewers. So that's one of the dramatic things about drawing perspective. You really have to trust what you see. Yeah, same idea. After the general outline, I'm drawing the flower pots laying in a row on the windowsill. So windows, they're actually slabs, very thin slabs carved out from the exterior of a building. So I'm adding those layers of curving lines to suggest the three-dimensionality of the carved out area. And then after that, I'm ready to draw the pattern of the window panels in fan and half circle shapes. And then fill in some of these little shapes with solid black ink to show that there's actually a space behind the window. And then adding these pretty easy vertical bars of the railing, accentuate along the way. And when I'm drawing these horizontal lines, I'm making sure that it is aligning very much the same as the window on the left. And then just keep going with these vertical bars behind. Accentuate so the window overall looks stronger and more interesting to look at. The platform for the flower pots. And that's very much it for this window. Now I'm drawing the lamp in between. So in general, the lamp shape is a cylinder and is hanging on a curving hook to the wall. Yeah, and then moving on to the next lamp. Now this one is looking a little bit smaller compared to the one on the left. Again, because of perspective. Yeah, they're in the same shape and design. Now I'm drawing this graphic frame printed on the wall. Then this vertical line to define the edge of the building. Now I'm drawing this horizontal line going upwards towards the right because it's below my eye level. This is kind of like the skirt area on the base part of the building. And the bottom line of the building is actually going down, not really seemingly following the rule of 1 point perspective because it's a slope. Okay, so sometimes the horizontal lines of a building is not really following the rule of perspective because it's on a slope. So now I am working on the refined details of the graphics of the logo of the cafe. It's called the Vault Cafe. Yeah, so the letter design is very interesting. Very modern kind of style. Okay, so that's it. It's kind of like a stamp printed on the wall. Now just working on these two taller flower pots by the entrance and starting to draw the foliage around. So when I'm doing urban sketching, I always love to establish a nice balance of human-made structures and organic forms. So in this case, the left side of the sketch is of this nice little pink building. Now for the right side is mainly going to be trees and leaves. So I just drew the tree trunk of this tree over here. After the tree trunk, I am seeing the multiple large branches extending out from the top part of the trunk. So the bottom of the tree trunk is a little bit higher from the cafe building because they're laying on different horizontal lines in space. So I'm trying to see the field of depths over here. So I see a foreground area with two men sitting at the tables. The middle ground with this tree and other foliage surrounding it, and the background is the other side of the street. So about 3 layers that I'm seeing right now. So now I'm coming back to the first layer in the foreground, the edge of the table, and this man with long hair, wearing sunglasses. He has a really nice dog. And now I see someone passing by, just starting with the head of that person and drawing from my memory of the outfit of that person, just to give a sense of proportions and sense of depth. And then drawing another table with wooden planks and the fence on the other side of the street, very loosely, just to suggest the thing that's there. And then the legs of the table here, just a few steps away from me. So I just switched to a different table because the sun was so strong on the other table. The sun was glaring on my paper and it's not healthy for the eyes. So now I'm continuing to draw another man chatting with that long-haired man. He's in a hat and has dark hair. And then finishing the right side of the table, and then in the very, very foreground, there's a tree behind this table. The wooden structure of the table, the wooden planks, the grainy feel, and then drawing these branches and twigs. So I love drawing branches because they're kind of like arms from a tree, and then this lovely dog of the long-haired man's. And using this loose organic broken lines to depict the grainy, rough texture of the tree bark. And then a couple of leaves. I believe the maple tree is going to change color in the fall. So I can't wait to revisit again in the fall to paint the leaves. And finishing up some extra urban details in the distance. Keep the details in the distance very simple, and that's it. Now I'm ready to paint watercolors. So I want to begin with the cafe building, just wetting it with clear water. So under the dappling shapes of purples, I see the local color or the original color of the painted wall. It's a very mild pink for the higher part of the building. So it's a diluted version of the red magenta-ish color from my palette. For the lower part is more of a magenta, diluted with water as well, and just keeping this wash really loose. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. Slight bit of gradients happening is fine, and then a stronger or less watery layer of magenta for the bottom, the skirt of the building. So that's the first layer, the local colors of the two sections of this building. Now I'm cleaning my brush and just putting on this lemon yellow for the warm, cozy lights behind for the interior. So when you're painting windows in large shapes like these, so really recommend you to see deeper of what's really behind the beautiful colors reflected or the interior lighting behind the glass panels. Now just adding the glaze of diluted yellow ochre for the sidewalk to show that it's a bright sunny day. Very much for the whole area around the pink building, for the foreground, middle ground, and the background area. And clean my brush and grab a bit of cerulean blue to paint a little bit of sky behind these trees. So I feel like these trees needs a blue sky space to breathe. The shadow on the wall is quite a challenge without making them looking too messy. And also there are a bit of negative spaces in the middle of the canopies of the trees for this blue sky. Okay, so now I just mix my own purple by mixing cobalt blue into red magenta, diluted a little bit so the shadow color, it doesn't look too harsh. Starting from the most intense value of purple for the bottom of the building. So painting dappled shadow is a little bit tricky. In certain areas, the value of purple is darker. As you can see, I also put it on a bit of more bluish purple for the middle part of the wall. Same idea over here. I'm trying to keep my purple a little bit diluted. If it's too concentrated, it looks too harsh on the wall. At the same time, I'm also mixing a more or less cobalt blue into the red magenta. So I have a variety of very subtle tones of purples. Some are more pinkish, some are more bluish. Those areas looking more bluish purple is because those leaves, the bundle is more heavy compared to other areas on that tree. Alright, just keep following my observation of the tones of purples that I see, keep spreading it out around this area, shifting away from me. The purple is even more diluted. Alright, so now I'm going to have fun painting the window panels. So windows that look very dark during daytime, but to me they are more of a dark purple color. So again, I'm playing with magenta and lots of cobalt blue, and this time the paint is more concentrated. In other words, containing least amount of water compared to those values that I painted for the wall. By controlling the amount of water that you put on, that you mix into the paint, you could create seemingly very different looking colors. But they are actually the value scale of that same color. Applying some leftover purple for the window framed areas. Yeah, so these window frames are also dappled with shadows from the trees. Okay, now it's time to grab some rosy color to paint these flowers, and also a bit of hooker's green mixed with lime green for their green leaves. Yeah, the greens are really important and very refreshing looking in the middle of all the pinks and purples. Adding some leftover gray for the shadow on the walkway below the base of the building. Adding some stronger bluish purples. As you can see, I added some little bit more stronger values of purples on the bottom right corner of the wall. Okay, now it's time to move on to paint these tree canopies, starting with lime green mixed with yellow ochre and a tiny bit of hooker's green for some darker valued leaves. And just really having fun punching on these singing colors of light values of green, playing with lime green, yellow ochre, and a tiny bit of hooker's green. Wait for those greens to dry a little bit before adding contrast. So now I am mixing burnt sienna with a little bit of hooker's green for the first layer of the tree trunk. And then wet onto wet some raw umber for a bit of contrast. And very much the same color but more diluted for these tables that are really rustic looking. And now it's time to add contrast for the greens, for the lush greens. So this is very much hooker's green, higher ratio of hooker's green with a little bit of yellow green. For some areas, I also mix in a little bit of burnt sienna to shade the greens even further. Again, keep using these choppy brushstrokes to get the texture of the leaves in various sizes of brushstrokes controlled by hand pressure. Yeah, some leftover brown. For this one is burnt sienna mixed in with cobalt blue to get a really dark sepia color using the vertical brushstrokes to get the texture of bark in. Yeah, contrast for the tables. Putting on a little bit of leftover blue for the fence there on the other side of the street, just to add more interest for this picture, because we do have a lot of warm pinks and greens. Some colder color for the shadows and some slightly colder green. It helps to balance out too many warm colors. So again, you can mix even more burnt sienna into hooker's green to get these darker values of greens. For skin color, I mix orange and red together, diluted with a lot of water. And then using leftover colors to paint these guys' outfits, brown for the dog's fur, leftover bluish grays for a final bit of shadows. And that's it. Here's the look of my finished sketch. So thank you so much for watching this video, everyone. If you like it, please click like and leave me a comment below. Subscribe to my channel for more exciting videos of my Vancouver Island adventures this summer. It takes some time to edit and voice over for these videos, so thank you so much for your patience waiting for a new video coming up. In the next video, I will show you how I sketched the goats on roof at the market in a little town called Coombs near Nanaimo. See you soon, everyone. Bye.